Hello, everyone. This is another one of my impromptu webinar, or it's not quite a webinar, not quite a podcast. It's sort of like just a conversation with a good friend who I had the opportunity to meet last summer at an author's event in Chicago.
Right.
And we had opportunity to get to know one another. I was launching my book, Becoming the New Boss. She was in process of getting her book going, which is since launched, called The Magic of Tiny Business. And her name is Sharon Rowe.
Hello.
Sharon is a wonderful entrepreneur who lives up in Westchester, I believe.
Yep.
And has a business which is really a purpose-driven business. Got in on the front end of it, if you will, called EcoBags. You could visit the site, ecobags.com. And Sharon, in essence, provides a wonderful resource for people who are environmentally conscious and want to do their part to help sustain our environment and do it in the right way, which is a big deal. And every time I turn around, I'm seeing something, Sharon. Like last week, I noticed there was an article in my feed about a woman in South Carolina who's down in Charleston, and she's having a hard time selling her house. I think she actually decided to just tear it down because she went from what she thought was an $1 million property to having maybe 11 floodings over a relatively short period of time, and they're attributing it to the rising water levels in that area. And so I'm not quite front and center as it relates to the environment and all the implications of our behaviors, but it's real. You know, there's something going on. I don't know if the intense heat we experienced in New York and in Europe and in other places throughout the summer are indicative of this as well, but certainly some real issues here. And so it's a pleasure to be chatting with you this morning.
Thank you.
I would certainly love to hear more about the book. I know that you were traveling a bit and you had a chance to speak to others about it. So tell us a little bit about the book. Tell us a bit about what you do, what your business is about, and also your experience in sharing your message.
Sure. Thank you for inviting me. This is exciting. You know, about that woman with her property, my husband's a songwriter, and he wrote a song called Tennessee Paradise, and it's all about buying a property in the hills in Tennessee and just being patient enough to wait till it becomes beach property.
Wow, that's a long
time.
Kind
of a spoofy song. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then there's another piece of that is always seek the highest ground. Yeah. With that, I'll segue into my book, which is really, it's about all the choices you make. And we have a lot of choices in front of us. That's one of the benefits in being in our culture. We have a lot of choices. And sometimes we have too many choices. And the key thing, I think, and I wrote about it in The Magic of Tiny Business, is really spending time with yourself to articulate what your priorities are for who you want to be in the world and how you want to be in the world, and how you want to use business, if you're going into business, as a platform for how you want to communicate the change you seek or sustain in the world. And to create a bit, using business as a platform, create the asset that you want and need for yourself, which does not compromise other people or the planet. So simply said, do things in a sustainable, responsible way. Sometimes it's the longer path. You know, it's not the short road. Sometimes it's not about discounting and getting something for the cheapest amount. Sometimes it's taking the longer view and patiently taking those steps that you need to take to stay in alignment for the choices that you want to make, so that you create the change that you want to make. Now, there's no guarantees, and everybody's in their own time frame. Everyone has different demands on them, but I can tell you that there's a lot of focus on sprinting in terms of get there fast, go big or go bust, make it or break it. And I'm saying, after 28 years in business, not without a lot of frustration in between. This is not an easy ride. Business is not an easy ride, but neither is being a doctor, an accountant, or a retail clerk. None of this is easy, right? It all takes work. Is that if you set out to go somewhere, kind of like driving a car. I'm in Westchester. I want to get to Richmond, Virginia. If you think about it before you jump in the car and you head in a direction, eventually you will get to a place that you set out to go to, or to a new place, you definitely won't be where you started.
So tell me a little bit, Sharon, that was great, but there's something specific you said at the beginning
Oh my gosh, okay.
that, yeah, that
Roll it back.
maybe I got to go all the way back. I was sort of holding it till you were finished.
Yeah, you should have cut me off.
No, that's okay. I didn't want
I
to
got
lose sight
lost
of
in
it.
the metaphor.
Some people might find it to be naturally intuitive, and some people might say, what is she talking about?
Right.
And I might fit somewhere in between. When
Okay.
you talk about being, I think the language was be who you want to be in the world or something similar. What do you
Okay.
mean by that?
Okay. What I specifically mean by that is, and I'll give you a story because I think it illustrates it better. When I first got to New York City as a young lass, I was an actress and I needed to find work. And it's not easy finding work. And I went out and I did what actors do. Their main job for an actor is auditioning. And I found myself auditioning a lot for products I didn't want to promote, in categories you might want to guess at, but they just would say they weren't healthy for you. In plays where I didn't like the way it was written or the message of it, or being in the company of that group. Like I wasn't willing to compromise myself as I went along. And I realized it takes as much work, if not more, to, generate your path in a direction where you're having to make all these different compromises and you get nicked in bits, as it does to simply hold your ground and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to hold on to what is the most important to me. I'm not saying you don't have to compromise sometimes, but I'm saying, watch your compromises. Make sure they don't nick at your soul, literally. And it takes time to develop the real path that you want to be on.
Okay, cool. That was helpful.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask you, how do you create the balance between, because everybody's going to have to compromise in some way.
There's always something.
There's no perfect, right. There's no perfect situation. We all know that. The question becomes, where do you, how do you prioritize and where? But I think you touched on it enough, at least for now. So I want to pivot, if I can, to the underlying premise of your business, as well as conversations that you are hearing or engaging in with regards to the environment, with regards to sustainability. What is the landscape? I know the media tends to present, depending on, of course, which part of the political landscape, you get your news from. But there are many who are regularly feeding us all sorts of information relating to the real challenges associated with the environment. Right. Where do you stand on that? And just in general, what do you think is business's role as it relates to sustainability? Right.
Well, first of all, in terms of news sources, I'll just go right to one journalistic channel that I think everyone can agree on, which is National Geographic.
Okay.
Let's just go right there.
I think they're kind of like PBS. I think
they're kind of like, they're not, they're even more than PBS. I mean, everybody, and actually there's been articles in the New York Times recently that says that the one thing people are coming together on is preservation of our natural spaces.
Okay.
The sustainability of our natural common spaces, which is water, air, and land. That's one thing across the political spectrum that people are coming together on. And what I'm seeing is that there are huge opportunities in this space to start and build. I like to use the word profitable, because profit is not a bad word. It's an engine. It's basically the energy in your tank to get things done, in this society, in the space of creating goods and services that don't harm or subjugate other people or the planet. I mean, the obvious thing would be, stripping, without getting political, stripping the earth for natural resources, or, employing people for $1 a day to make something that winds up selling for X and is fast fashion, I think people are coming together on this. And the reason I know it, and it's not just because I'm tuned into B Corp Social Venture Network. I see it because it's been in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. It's all over the place now in terms of how we can all come together with simple actions on a daily basis. Even if the overall tenet of your business or your product or service is not that thing, to make choices that will create a large change. I mean, I saw something on the internet the other day, which was, it's only one straw to you, but 8 billion people using them every day makes a lot of straws. We've been sold this idea of convenience.
So let me push back, if you don't mind, for a
Yeah.
second, Sharon, on that, because I think you're right. But at the same time, there's a level by which we take it sometimes that I wonder if it kind of makes sense. Like, for example, what's going on now in California with the plastic straws. I don't think it's statewide, but I think there may be certain communities, cities, areas.
They're banning them.
What's that? They're banning them, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, from what I understand, it's a felony for a business to distribute these straws to customers, and you could get arrested. I'm not quite sure the extent of it, but I know it's been a bit of an uproar. So I guess the question is, how do you draw the line? Like, you go to Canada. We were recently in Chicago, so there are taxes on bags or fees that you have to pay. I get that. You want to sort of discourage people from doing it.
You want to phase.
Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, you want to phase in new practices over time. And I think, let's just look at the straws, for instance. I mean, the bags are still happening after all these years. But with straws, it's really complicated, because you've got stores and restaurants that are using them, that are getting them through their brokers, through their distributors, through their wholesalers, blah, blah, blah. There's an entire chain there.
Sure.
So you can mandate no straws, but you have to put a line in the sand and say, as of X date, and you have to give a reasonable amount of time for them either to be destroyed or to be used, and that's the end of it. I think it's completely responsible to say no straws. It's just like you have to wear a seatbelt. You're creating harm. You're putting a penalty on the rest of the culture because of your action. With a straw.
Where does that end? Where does that end? That's like saying, if I want to drive my car, I'm creating emissions, or if I want to use any.
Where does it end? Right. So
maybe I shouldn't have a trash can. Maybe I should only use things that that can fit it, that can go into my compost.
Right, because in Seattle, you're only allowed to make a certain amount of trash. Anything above that, you're charged extra. And if you
nothing that Seattle does surprises me.
Yeah, and in Europe, where I just was, in Denmark, Norway, and I can't remember if this happened in Iceland though. You're responsible to not mix your compost with your recycled, separate your recycled. I can't say they're perfect. They have a lot of single-use plastics. And they have, look, if you don't make the mess, you don't have to clean it up. The cost of cleaning it up is huge. It's a huge burden on municipalities. Sure. And so it hits us in the taxes, and when the taxes go up, and then the school taxes, I mean, it's all part of the same thing. So if we can do without the things that create injury, and I'll just broadly say taxes, clean up, then we don't have to clean up after ourselves.
So if you're a consultant, I'm now giving you a new business, by the way. Okay. You're brought into a business because they love your book and they love what you stand for, and they want you to give them some parameters of how do we make money, at the same time be, let's call it, socially and economically, environmentally responsible.
Right.
How do you guide a company that clearly in the past has been looking to do everything they can in order to make as much profit margin as possible?
Right.
How do you guide them and create new 21st century standards that they can live with and accept, and bring you back for more consultations? And at the same time, you feel like
it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, actually, there's an organization here in Westchester called Westchester Green Business, and they actually have it outlined step by step by step what you can do from your light bulbs to your coffee mugs to, I think, very importantly, how you choose the partners you work with as your suppliers.
Okay.
How to vet them, how to make sure that they're in the kind of compliance that you're seeking, and if they're not, that they'll work with you and create a sustainability plan so that they can fall into alignment over time. I mean, not everybody has it in place all at the same time. Like Danone now is the largest international corporation to be completely a socially responsible entity, which means a fair wage and fair labor, socially and responsible environmental choices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it can be done.
Are they more expensive typically? Such compliance?
No, actually not now. See, when I started, yes. I mean, when I started, you couldn't even get recycled paper. Now think about that now. It's one of the choices, right?
Sure.
So I would say it's not always more expensive. You can choose the more expensive option.
Hmm.
But like LED lights, are they more expensive? No. I mean, and then you also have to look
Well,
long,
not over time.
right, over time. You
Yeah,
have to
not over
look
time.
over
Yeah.
time. Um, and sometimes again, sometimes you have to compromise and you have to make the um, the less responsible choice for the shorter term gain to get you to the line where you're going to make the longer term investment for the longer range plan.
Hmm.
So, I mean, and no one's perfect. I mean, I went nuts the other day. Somebody brought in a big bag of candy in a big plastic bag, and look, we're an eco bag. I'm like, you can't do that, but it's like, you got to eat candy, is what they said.
100%. All right, I want to bring this back if I can to where we started in a sense, because I
Yeah,
think that, and this maybe will be our last point, because I think that if anyone jumped onto this video hoping to see two authors talking about books and specifically how do you get your message out there, how do you create a platform for people to want to hear what it is that you have to share, whether you've written a book, whether you've got a program that you want people to sign up for, or just a message in general. What have you found? I know that you were maybe not your primary focus while you were touring, was your book, but definitely was something that you were focused on in emails and social media. I know
yeah.
I received quite a bit of it. So what have you found through that experience that people who have great messages to share, how do you engage others around your topic, your
Right.
purpose, your mission, and how do you drive sales?
Um, Good question. I mean, the how do you drive sales piece is still a little bit of a mystery to me in the world of books. But how do you
For
spread?
many people, it is. Books
How
are
many? How
not
do
as
you?
easy to.
And I've been working on it a lot. I have some good ideas. Actually, I can share with you after here, specifically for authors. But how do you spread ideas? It's been amazing to me that a lot of people have contacted me or said to me in an email exchange, "Oh my God, someone just gave me your book." And that thing of, I don't know you, I don't even
Uh-huh.
know the person who gave you that thing, and this is happening. And then they're like, I love this because the book actually does speak to a very aspirational part in ourselves, which is where we're really working holistically, right?
Hmm.
Where it's all coming together, not without the bumps and the bruises either. It's a funny book, so I have to put that in there. There's a lot
Okay.
more in the book, but so I think ideas spread, and when ideas spread, books sell, and then you become someone that people come to for guidance, advice, coaching, whatever. And the key thing there, though, is that I'm someone who wrote a book because I have these ideas. I'm not the overall maven. I'm not I mean, I don't know it all. I can just share what I know and hope that you will have enough confidence and belief in yourself to step forward and out and do what you think is your important work.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then in
Okay.
terms of sales, like I said, I'll work on it with you. I think authors need to support each other because we share audiences.
That's true.
Because we're in the same kind of bucket.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, this was a fun
Okay,
conversation,
this is fun.
and
Yeah, I liked
yeah,
it.
I'm
I like
enjoying this.
to
I've not done too much, we've talked about, and I've shared with my audience as well. Everything I've done in the past is audio, all scripted. I'm a scripted kind of guy, but I'm going off script today.
and you got me
And
after I went swimming, so my
like,
hair's kind of
there you
wet. I'm
go.
relaxed.
Okay, that's exactly right. Which is nice because I think people like to see who we are really, just without being all brushed up and, so to speak,
This is as brushed up as summer gets.
Okay, fair enough. Well, it's been a pleasure.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you for sharing your wisdom and your experiences, and I'm looking forward to sharing this.
Okay, good. And
All
anything I
righty.
can do for you, you let me know.
You got it. All the best now.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.